Hey everyone, welcome to Property Finance with Lee and part 10 of our Ultimate First Home Buyers Guide series. In the final video of this series, we're going to talk about wrapping up the purchase of your first home with the settlement process. If you're new to the channel, I'm a licensed mortgage broker with an extensive property investment background. I talk all things property financing and investing. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to keep up with my latest content. Let's go. The amount of time between agreeing to buy the home and settling can be negotiated between the buyer and the seller. Typically though, it can take anywhere between 1 to 4 months. The key players involved in the settlement process include the seller, you the buyer, your bank, your mortgage broker if you have one, your conveyancer and the seller's lender and conveyancer. During the process, your mortgage broker and solicitor will ideally keep you informed every step of the way. Remember though, it is ultimately your responsibility to make sure you understand what's been agreed upon. So just so you can have an idea, let's go over the different stages of the settlement process. First things first, a contract of sale is put together between the seller and the buyer. Sometimes the selling agent might handle this paperwork, but it's typically the seller's lawyer who drafts the sale agreement, especially when the sale is through an auction. This document is crucial for the property transaction, outlining the rights and duties of both parties. It covers all the necessary info regarding the deal, such as the price, transfer of ownership info, buyer and seller names, the property specifics, any transaction conditions, and payment and loan terms. If needed, just note you can negotiate the contract terms, for example, asking for a longer settlement. Remember, it's good practice to have your conveyancer review the sale contract before parties sign and exchange it. If you live in Queensland, remember it's a requirement to take out insurance as of 5 p.m. the following day on signing a contract of sale. This is different to most other states which require it from the day of settlement. The holding deposit is a small sum you pay to the selling agent to demonstrate your genuine interest in buying the property. This holding deposit is completely refundable if the contract isn't finalised. It's a way for the buyer to signal their intent to proceed. However, this deposit alone doesn't secure the property. If both parties agree on the price and terms, the contract of sale will be signed and settlement process will begin. Assuming everything goes smoothly without any issues or adjustments needed, the buyer and seller will proceed to contract settlement. At this stage, final checks are carried out and all parties sign the sale contracts. After signing and exchanging the sale contract, the buyer needs to pay a deposit, typically around 10% of the purchase price. If the vendor requires a 10% deposit, it may be more cost effective to use a deposit bond, especially with a longer settlement. A deposit bond, sometimes referred to as a deposit guarantee, is an insurance policy that acts as a guarantee to the vendor that the purchaser will pay the deposit at settlement. Essentially, it replaces forwarding cash to the real estate agent with a deposit bond certificate instead. The benefit with a deposit bond is you don't have to hand over cash up front. Your savings can stay put, earning interest while you wait for settlement. It's also flexible for auctions as you can leave the deposit bond amount fixed and fill in the vendor and property details if you win the bid at auction. Once the deposit has been paid, at this stage the cooling off period begins. The cooling off period is a time frame after signing a contract of sale that allows you the option to withdraw from the deal. Use this time wisely to consider your decision to buy. During this time, your contract should allow certain timeframes for subject to building and pest and subject to finance clauses. Engage a building and pest inspector and make sure you're fine with the report, and also make sure you have secured your finance before allowing the contract to proceed past the times allotted for these clauses. While a cooling off period commonly applies to property sales, it's not always the case. For instance, there's no cooling off period for properties bought at an auction. Building and pest reports and finance requirements need to be completed prior to bidding. Okay, so once a contract moves past the cooling off period and all subject clauses are nullified, your conveyancer will prepare a transfer of property document, which you need to sign. It then needs to be sent to the seller or their conveyancer for their signature and stamp before settlement. In some states, the buyer's conveyancer can forward a set of official questions to the seller, known as requisitions on title. This is done to gather any information the seller might not have revealed before or was unaware of. In Queensland and Victoria, requisitions on title have been substituted with warranties included in the contract. Your conveyancer should also do additional searches to make sure there aren't any issues with the title, that the land isn't contaminated, or whether there has been any unapproved construction on the property. If the seller has a home loan on the property, their conveyancer contacts a financial institution to obtain a payout figure. At settlement, They hand over a discharge of the home loan and often a certificate of title deed. The buyer's conveyance's next task is to calculate adjustments until the settlement date, which is agreed upon by the seller's representative. The buyer pays an additional amount to cover expenses already incurred by the seller for the time they will own the property. These adjustments cover things like council rates, water, and body corporate. They are factored into the final settlement calculation and paid during that time. Right before settlement, you'll get the chance to conduct a final property inspection. Usually this happens either on the day before or the morning of the settlement. Speak with the agent to schedule this inspection. It's the seller's responsibility to hand over the property in the same condition as when it was sold. During your final visit, make sure to check all appliances are in working condition, that the structure, things like the walls, light fittings, windows, and floor coverings are in the same state as when you first viewed the property. It's also a good idea to make sure things like keys, automatic garage door controls are supplied and working. For those purchasing a new home, make sure that all the work is completed and that appliances are installed and working. If you're not confident in checking these aspects yourself, you can arrange a defects inspection by a building inspector. I recommend that to anyone buying brand new, with the number of builders trying to cut costs out there these days, especially for your first home. You don't want to be taking unnecessary risks. Building issues can easily run into the tens of thousands to fix. After this, at last we reach the final settlement stage, where the buyer settles the agreed bill with the vendor. Years ago, settlement involved physical attendance by both parties' conveyancers and financial institutions for exchange of title documents. Nowadays, 99% of the time, it's done electronically on the PEXA platform rather than in person. At some point that day, you'll get a call from your conveyancer telling you it's all done. Congratulations, you now own your very first home. All that's left is to pick up your keys from the agent, smash open that bottle of champagne, and have fun moving your stuff in. Guys, this was the final video in our 10-part First Home Buyer's Guide series. I hope this series has educated you on the different aspects of purchasing your first home and given you the knowledge you need to start your property journey. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Also, like I've mentioned in previous videos, if you found a property and want a free property report, follow the link in the description below. Provide us with the address and we will email it to you. Thank you for joining me today. Catch you next time.